Welcome to the Mental Health Minute Young Adult Edition. I'm Chris Salyards, Executive Director for the Bridge Youth and Family Services. In this podcast, we'll connect with local students to hear their personal stories, experiences, and insights on mental health. By amplifying the voices of young people, we aim to highlight the unique challenges and pressures they face while emphasizing the importance of mental well-being. We're excited to have these conversations with you. Welcome back to the Mental Health Minute. I'm Chris Salyards, the Executive Director for the Bridge Youth and Family Services. Today, we are actually kicking off our Mental Health Minute Teen Edition with my guests, Prisha and Harshini. Both are FREMD students, and they've joined me to talk about stress, managing stress, and understanding your root and background causes of your stress. So I'm just going to kick it off here with these two. So we started talking about stress about a week ago, and everybody feels it differently and everybody thinks about it differently. So I just wanted you to tell me why you thought it was important for us to have this conversation.
I think it's really important to balance your stress. I think with your social life, your culture, and then your school, I think it's very important that you know how to manage it so you can move forward.
Okay.
With your day.
Yeah, similar question. I've seen so many of my friends talk about how stressed they are, and it just kind of makes me sad that they're stressed. I want to help them somehow. And I feel like this podcast is a way to do that as well.
Excellent. So it's sort of like inviting all of your peer group into a room and saying, listen, we have some tips for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think, and I know I'm asking you to represent on a large scale people who are generally your age, but what do you think the biggest stressors are for teenagers right now?
In general, it's tests and also college or just in general, after high school, what am I going to do? And then also social stress.
Okay. You want to say more about social stress?
Well, definitely what other people think about you. I think especially in the movies, they portray so much gossip going around all the time when in reality it's not always like that. But because they portray it that way, we think that it's going to be everyone judging us all the time. And obviously it's also natural, human, instinct to feel that way. So we're just constantly thinking about, are we going to embarrass ourselves if we do something? And things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you talk about, there's not a lot of gossip around. Well, there is a lot of gossip, but it's not as prevalent as a 90-minute movie, which shows it, right? Pretty concentrated. Do you think that social media and movies and anything that you watch, any content you watch, do you think that influences whether you will gossip or won't gossip?
I think that actually has to do with your environment where you are and how you're brought up. I don't like to gossip, and sometimes movies actually help solidify that because it's oh, if you gossip, then bad stuff will happen. But other people do, and they watch the same things. So I'm pretty sure it's just up to how you're brought up.
I think some people even consider it to be fun and stuff. So I think that also causes issues with friends and that also causes stress. So yeah, I think another thing that also we see in movies and stuff that causes stress is how people see their body and stuff, body images and stuff. So I think that's also just kind of loving yourself and then bringing positive energy to everyone. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because you have how many thousands of TikToks on how to put on makeup, on what you're going to wear, get ready with me videos. What else? What am I missing? Because I'm not a social media person.
There's fit checks to see what you're wearing, so you want to stay on the trend, there's that.
Getting rid of acne.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that for certain classes or social statuses of individuals, keeping on trend is easy, but not for everybody. Yeah. So probably compounds your stress, risk of being embarrassed if I'm called upon and I don't feel good about my body image. I don't feel good about what I'm wearing that day. that really sort of makes you shrink into a tinier little like nut, right? When you're in a
Mhm.
classroom. Would you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, if people bring it up, definitely. Most of the time, I think people nowadays, especially teenagers, are a lot more aware that like the certain like words can make people feel terrible. So especially like around your friends, it's a lot less likely to happen than I think maybe it used to be because people are just more aware.
Yeah. I think it's also like if someone else is wearing Lululemon pants and you like, you know, you're like, oh, I want that. I think that's also like this whole like thing where you keep buying things just to like keep up with the trends and like make sure you fit in with like the right crowd and the right people and just like fit in general. I think that's also like a thing that causes stress.
And what advice would you give to someone who came up to you? Because I mean, you said, I want to help people. Okay, here's your chance, right? Here you go. So, what would you say to someone who was like, oh, I really don't feel like I can keep up with the trends and it makes me feel different?
Mhm.
And what would you say to them?
Well, I would say, like, first of all, being different is actually a superpower because if you're trying to keep up with the trends, you're kind of like blending in. You're just like everyone else. Like, own your uniqueness and trends will come and go, but like who you are, what you like, that will stay more constant. And honestly, like, keeping up with what you like will make you more happier and honestly might even give you some of that social status that you've been trying to gain by keeping up with the trends, which is counterintuitive, but that's kind of how it works.
I think you're right. The only person who can build your confidence is you, right?
Yes.
You can validate yourself and
Yeah,
feel good about yourself.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think?
I think it's just like, I think you should just kind of like love yourself. And I think everyone having their own unique style is also so beautiful because it's like, wow, this girl's wearing this and this girl's wearing that, but they're both like equally like great, you know? So I think you don't need Lululemon leggings to be like unique and perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
I've seen like there are some people at our school that have like fashion choices that I would never wear, but it looks so good on them. I'm like, you keep
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
It's so unique. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like, no, yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, there was a guy in my school when I was in high school, which is a long time ago. And he used to wear plaid shorts with a blazer jacket and Converse. And it was just who he was. That was his person. And every girl wanted to date him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because he really stood out. And I was like, I'm not getting it. But you know what? Having him in normal clothes would not have fit his personality whatsoever. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I say normal clothes, that was normal for him. So going back to internal confidence, validation, how do you think your family, your home, your culture, how do you think all of those factors contribute to how you manage stress?
Sorry. Oh, I think personally, I think just being around my family and my culture, it really just like, it feels like I'm taking a weight off my shoulder because I feel like I'm like getting to know myself a little better and my parents, which actually like, I don't know, I enjoy a lot. But at the same time, I think my family and a lot of parents in general, they compare like you to a lot of other people. Like for me, it might be my sister or like my parents' friend's daughter, you know? So I think it's just like, it does like compile a lot of stress on me because I feel like I need to be good enough or like I'm not enough because like I'm comparing myself with other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents always had this interesting juxtaposition where like they come from a culture that does like compare other people, but then they would like somehow I've had enough like faith in myself to like not really care too much, if that makes sense. Like I was like focusing on myself rather than other people. So when I was compared to other people, I would just be like, okay, but that's them, or like these are my standards. So I'd rather adhere to them. I think definitely though with like grades and stuff, because I know the culture that at least Fremd has is very like academic focused. And so you're constantly like comparing yourself to your peers on your grades and like your extracurriculars and stuff. And that can be a stress because you always feel like sometimes you're just not doing enough, which I have felt.
Interesting. So say more about that.
Same.
Like you're not doing enough. So, what does that do to you when you think, oh, I've got these AP classes and what clubs are you involved in?
So I was mostly involved in like science club and computer science club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah Brainiac.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So you're in some pretty interesting academic clubs, and then you're in AP classes. And when you have that moment, and typically those moments of I'm not doing enough, those are moments where you're feeling very vulnerable or something's not really going your way, right? So what happens when you start to feel that way? What happens to your body? What happens to your psyche?
Well, I start constantly thinking about like, okay, how can I actually like I guess get myself to that level. Like I know some people have started nonprofits and stuff, and I'm like, wow, that is so much work. Like, should I also be doing this? So then me personally, I've always had this value of like doing things that I'm passionate about versus like other people. Just some of my friends have been like, oh, I'm doing this like for the goal of like getting into college and building up that resume. And so I was trying to like just stress about like, okay, how can I like meld those two things together? And I was having a hard time, and I felt like, oh, I have to start this, and I have to do some type of fundraiser and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I didn't really care about that. So it's like, I was in this state of like, I want to do something, but I'm not motivated enough to do it.
Okay. And then that makes you feel some type of way.
Yeah, it just makes me feel, like I guess like I won't accomplish as much in life as the other people who have that or who are doing that or who have done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I think for me, a lot of the stress that like I get is like from like obviously trying to get into college, but I think so many people are doing so much to get into college, and I feel like I'm not doing enough. It's also like I think like if someone else is taking an AP class, I think I need to take that same AP class as that college picks me. And I think it's just like this thing where like I also don't have time to do things that I just like to do in general. Like I feel like I've been losing a lot of my like passions that I normally like to do. Like I like to paint, but I've been studying so much for chem that I haven't really had time to paint, So I think it's just like this like on and off situation where I really don't have time to do things because I'm so focused on like the big goal of getting into a good college.
Which is a whole new stress that college has gotten so incredibly competitive. Yeah. And I think you guys are being reminded of that. I have to choose my words carefully. You're being reminded of that on the regular. Oh, yeah. And if you're not being reminded at school, you're being reminded at home, right? And people always say the choices you make will actually impact the choices you get to make later.
Yeah.
So, it's a really challenging time of your life. My advice to you is find time to paint. You got to find yourself some time to paint. But talk to me about, you said sometimes you don't have time to do the things you like. I'm guessing sometimes that might be hanging out with your friends.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times I'm trying to find a balance between my social life and then my academic life. And I think a lot of the times, like me and my friends, like we're all kind of in like the same academic group. So I think like if we have a test the next day, and we're also hanging out that day, then we like usually prioritize studying over hanging out. So I think a lot of the times we just postpone hanging out, that like I feel like I'm losing that social side a little bit. So I think it's very important to remember that you have to keep a balance even if you're busy. So I think, yeah, that's my advice.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I'm assuming you do a lot of clubs.
Yeah.
Whatever. I didn't really have that. And on top of that, I like don't procrastinate, which a lot of high schoolers do.
I do.
So yeah. So by the time like me and my friends meet up, I don't have anything to do. I know some of my friends leave early because they're like, oh, I have to study for this and I have to do this. But normally when I have things planned with my friends, like I always make sure to get at least the bare minimum done for the day. And then like maybe if I want to, I can go home after and then do like tasks that are less prevalent. And so that just takes some of the pressure off.
Okay. So you have excellent time management skills.
Yeah.
You not so much.
Yeah.
No. I think everybody works differently. I work really well under pressure.
Yeah.
So I can save a huge project for the night before and do really well. But I know people who it makes absolutely crazy.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That would stress me out so much.
And so stress is different. So if I start a project early, sometimes that creates stress for me. Right.
Oh, okay.
because I usually do a lot of thinking and then I go into
Oh.
action.
I
So,
agree. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So if you were to give your peers one piece of advice based on the stuff we've already talked about, what one piece of advice would you give somebody who said, I'm juggling all this stuff for school. I feel like I need to keep up with my friends
Mhm.
for AP classes. I feel like I need to get involved in all of these clubs so that I can be selected and have a great college resume and get the money, right? It's all about getting the money. And I'm really worried about what colleges I should apply to and if I'm good enough. So if
Mhm.
someone came to you and just kind of said that to
Yeah.
you, what would you tell them?
I think I would just say take like a breath, I think it's just important to like live in the present moment sometimes and just leave the stress behind. But at the same time, I think there are a lot of methods that you could use, like the Pomodoro method while studying, or just like maybe having a calendar to know what to do when. So I think it's important to like, yeah, like colleges like might pick you, might not pick you, but I think you'll get into the place that you're going to go as long as you put in the work and you do all the things that you need to. I think it's just important to stay calm and like get through life, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell me what the Pomodoro effect is? Because I had never heard of it.
Oh yeah. So basically it's this thing where like when I'm studying, sometimes I use it because I get distracted really easily. So sometimes I just take 25 minutes to study, right? Like I don't have my phone with me. I just study for 25 minutes straight. And then for 5 minutes, I take a little break, take a little walk, talk to my parents. I come back and I study for another 25 minutes. Because for a lot of people, like they can study in a long period of time and feel very like concentrated. But for me, I get distracted easily. So that really works for me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, I have two things. One, like reflect on whether like going to a amazing college like super important to you, because what I've realized, like I'm a senior, so I've already been through this, and I've realized that like it's actually up to you like where your life goes after college. Like the college you go to is only a little part of your life, and there are people that have gone to like not very well-known colleges and made it like super big, but we just don't think about that. And then the other thing is like just believe that you can do it. Like if that is your goal, just believe that you can be not stressed and also achieve that at the same time. Because I think there's like some type of like people just seem to think that you have to be overworking yourself to like succeed or like to get anything, and then people forget to just like take like 5 minutes just for themselves. Like you don't have to accomplish anything in that time, and you can still be successful outside of that as well.
Right. And sometimes do you think that people add more stress to their plate because they are internalizing what they think people are thinking about them and
Oh,
what
for
they
sure.
should.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing that my father said to me was, it's none of your business what other people think. And I was like, what a good little piece of
Yeah.
advice, right?
Yeah,
It
for
is
sure,
none
yeah.
of my business.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, then you can take one layer of stress right off your plate, because you guys both, in the time that we've spent together, you're both very goal directed, and you seem like
Yeah.
you know where you're headed, even though your path is not defined, right? And so maybe I'll give you another piece of wisdom that someone said to me. I always steal all the good ones. She said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Oh,
And
that's good.
that's a really good picture. I even use it with staff at work, because sometimes if you look at the whole elephant, eating that much feels overwhelming. But if you just start with the tail,
Yeah.
it feels like, oh, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes maybe even reframing what everything looks like and breaking it into bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
What do you think? I had another question. Let's see. Let's move off of the topic of school for a moment and pressure from school. And let's talk about social pressures.
Okay.
So What's it? I mean, everybody's seen Mean Girls,
Yeah.
right? So we know that's a bit dramatic.
Yeah.
There, although I think there may be one Regina George in every school.
Yes.
But talk about pressures that you feel at school outside of the academics.
Mhm. Well, so for social pressure, I seem to be surrounded by like a very good group of people. Like people don't generally like say things to your face, but like even participating in class, like no one participates. So when I want to participate, I'm like, okay, am I being weird if I participate? And it's just that type of thing. Like it's preventing me from doing what I want to do just because I'm afraid of being like a try hard,
Okay.
Yeah. I think also I feel like there are a lot of different social groups in high school. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that or not, but I think I have. I think I've been mixed with the wrong type of people before. And I think it's very important to like surround yourself with good people because I feel like that can really influence. Like I was in some gossip last year, it was not good. But I think getting away from that and really realizing like who I want to be surrounded with and like what type of people I really want to be with, because that really influences who you are as a person. So I think that's very important as well.
I think it could also like start small, like on both of what we just said.
Yeah.
Like if you're afraid of moving away from those people, like right away, you can go slowly. You can cut off contact with maybe the person you speak the least with. Or like for me, what I did in terms of like participation is like I just raised my hand for like one question that was super easy and I knew I would get it right. And then I just kind of kept going until I felt less affected by people's possible judgments.
Yeah. I think for me, it was like a group of people and I was just kind of trying to get away from them. It was more like I just kind of tried to find new friends and tried to find new memories. You know what I mean? Rather than kind of like, yeah.
Like just leaving.
Yeah, because that's really hard because it's like, it's hard.
Yeah. No, as a teenager, you need that social validation a little bit. Yeah.
And do you think that kids your age use their grown-ups in their lives to handle some of this stuff, or do you typically handle it on your own?
I think I personally tell my parents everything. And I know people don't always have their therapists like that. But I mean, I tell my parents everything. I tell my sister everything. But still, I feel like there's some things that I kind of just keep to myself. And I feel like when I do that, I should just go to my room, close the door, and my social battery is absolutely dead by the end of the day. So I just kind of take some time like by myself. And then I talk to my parents. But I think that's one thing.
Okay.
I'm actually the opposite. I keep everything in. Obviously, like if it gets really bad, please like, give it out. Like don't hold it in. But I like am better at just processing my stress that way. I like to give myself advice. And the way I do that is like either write things down in my diary or like I pretend like if my friend has that problem, what would I do? I would give myself maybe 5 minutes to like cry it out, and just like process it like that.
Okay. So you're a talker and you're a processor.
Yeah.
Are there other ways that you sort of offload your stress? Do you exercise? Do you dance? Do you what are some other outlets you have?
Oh, I love listening to music and biking. I think that's just like, I love doing that because I feel like I'm just kind of like releasing all of the stress from my life for for 5 minutes or something. So that's pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like yoga actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And running. Reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All very
Just
good escapes.
Anything that's not like anything that forces me to focus on something else, basically.
You know what's really good for that is rock climbing. I did rock climbing and I couldn't think about anything other than getting my hand on the next notch in the wall. And I was like, that is the first time in 10 years I haven't thought about work.
That's actually, so nice. Yeah.
Because there's so much concentration, right?
Yeah, because you're trying not to fall off.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually do that at school. We have like a class.
Oh, really?
We have an adventure ed.
Oh, I want to do that next year.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
You literally rock climb. And that's like a whole different type of stress, but it's like good stress. It's like, you're overcoming your fears, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I that was the only activity I think I've ever done that sort of after I was like,
Do you like go rock climbing in your free time? Do you try?
I do not have free time, so I did it one time. So let's not get excited about my free time. Someday you'll be there too, but right now you do have some free time, even if it doesn't feel like it, right? What do you think that it's hard? I mean, we've touched on this a little bit about balancing social life or friend life or family life with academic life. And I'm sure you guys are working some.
Yeah.
I'm not anymore, but I was, yeah.
You were, and you are working a little bit. So then you've got to worry about your employee, being an employee, which is a whole nother kind of stress, right? I don't know if you work with customer service at all or in the restaurant industry, but people just seem unhappy these days.
Well, I tutor little kids and they're very energetic.
Oh, that's a word. Different kind of work. Yeah.
It's very stressful because there's so much happening and they're like.
But you're not thinking about your academics.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're sort of, this is just preparing you for what your stress threshold may be later in life. And I think you have a particularly high stress threshold. So how does one know when you have reached your maximum capacity?
Oh, okay. That's actually a really good question. Normally when I can't process it by myself, or it takes me more than like 5 minutes to, I guess, process it. I'm trying to think about like a time I felt super stressed. Oh, like, okay. Yeah, so like if I'm thinking about it like throughout the day, even though I'm not like working on that task specifically, or honestly, I think my physical body actually helps me a lot. It like helps me realize when it is too much and when I just need to let it out. But I've never like come across like, oh, it's too much and I need to like let go of something.
Yeah, you sort of develop a new threshold, right?
I
You're
guess.
practicing moving your goalpost a little further down the field.
Yeah, kind of. It's like I've started to realize recently, like most stress is actually helping you, in terms of, moving your stress threshold and also problem solving. And it's also temporary. Like most of the time, I think I came across this one piece of advice on Instagram, actually. Like if something isn't going to affect you 5 years down the road, don't spend more than 5 minutes thinking about it. And that helped me so much because I realized like, actually this one little grade that I got won't affect anything. And the fact that I messed up like this thing in front of everyone will not, like no one will care later. So that kind of helps too.
I love that advice. I think that's really important. And I would even say, 1 year.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, you could so many things at this age of your life, so many things are fleeting. And so it's important not to perseverate on those things that are, even though they might create the most amount of emotional discomfort. I often tell people when you're super uncomfortable, that means you're growing.
Yeah.
Because you're learning from that experience, whether you're learning how to handle it in the future, or you're learning something about yourself, or you're learning something about your relationship. When you're the most emotionally dysregulated, you can take that as a learning opportunity. But we're talking about normal, healthy stress. We're not talking about like serious mental health stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what about you? How does one know that you've reached your max capacity?
I like to think of it like if I have a test that day, right? I think like in 24/7, like 24 hours, it'll be over, right? So I think if I spend like sometimes at night, I can't sleep if I have like a test the next day because I'm really nervous. So I think at a point, like if that keeps happening, then I know that like my stress is kind of like going a little over the top. So I'd like to just take a day that I just kind of like don't do anything and just kind of take a day to like relax and then like regulate my stress a little bit. And then the next day go back running, so I think, it's just like, I think I just kind of know when I've reached my max because I've done it a couple times.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And as you said, your body tells you whether you're emotional or hungry or not hungry. Some people are stress starvers. Some people are stress eaters, right? If you're going in deep on a Ben and Jerry's, maybe
that means something.
Maybe something's off, right? Headaches, sleep disturbances, those kind of things. Do you find that your guidance counselors at school are people that you can go to and kind of talk about this with them, or not so much?
Not really. I think like it depends on the counselor that you have, but most of them are not very, I guess, like, okay, my counselor sometimes tells me things that I already know. Is like, because I'm a very like rational, logical person. And so I like just kind of like let something off my chest, and that person is like, like basically telling me what I already told myself, but it's just like I want to get off that stress. But maybe that's just because I like already process it, and I just want to complain. Like there's nothing else. So yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
I mean, I feel like I don't know my guidance counselor that well. So I don't really feel that comfortable talking with her, because I feel like I need someone to know me before I talk to them about like my problems. So I think that's like I said before, I talk a lot. So my parents and my sister, like they're good. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. I just wondered who like the grown-ups were outside of your family that you sort of felt comfortable going to.
I don't
I don't
really
think
know
it's
that many.
anyone except
Yeah.
like, yeah. Unless
it's like my family, I'm not really like comfortable talking with them about my life. So yeah.
That's fair. And just what about academic stress? Do you think that they have a finger on the pulse, or do you think that it's sort of like, here are all the 50 things that we have to tell you as a junior. Here's all the 50 things we have to tell you as a senior.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really like help with that. They're just, like they say that you can go to your counselor anytime to talk about things, but people don't really do that. Like, yeah, no one that I know does that.
If I'm like struggling with like an AP class or like an honors class, and I tell my counselor, she'll just tell me to drop it. Like I don't really want to do that. So yeah. I feel like at a point, she kind of like tells me to drop it. I'm like, well, no, I need that for my college app. So it's like this very like interesting situation where I feel like I really can't talk to her because she's just going to tell me to drop it.
Interesting. One of the things I've been thinking about, so I'm going to test some, do a focus group here for 1 second.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been thinking about is starting like a chat line for teens who can call in and ask any one of our counselors a question or ask for guidance. Do you think that kids would use something like that if they knew that it was licensed counselors? You didn't have to give your name. You could just talk about an issue that was affecting you and get some input.
I think I would use that because I feel like I said, like my family, but at the same time, if the person doesn't know me at all and I can just talk to them about my problems, then they have like a different perspective about my problems that they can offer me. And I think it's also like, I think it's very important to just kind of get your emotions out there, like talk about your problems, get through it. So I think talking to someone just that you don't know, I think that would really help. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as they're not like, oh, just drop this class, like you were saying. Like, I think, having someone there to listen that's not like your family.
Or yourself.
Or yourself.
That's like...
Overthinking. Don't do that.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's just to help you get out of your own head because you have the answers, but sometimes those answers are just buried under layers and layers and layers of expectations and emotions. And I mean, let's face it, you're teenagers, so your brains are still in this really crazy development phase. Your hormones are in a crazy development phase. So your whole body is growing and developing at a rapid pace, right? And then you've got all these other things. And so maybe just like helping you locate what you already know to be the answer to help you get there.
Yeah, I think that will be helpful for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just doing focus groups. Just wondering what we can do next.
Yeah.
What parting words do you want to give to our listeners? What is one thing that you want people to hear from you in the time that you've spent here today?
I think I'm dealing with daily stress. I feel like just like thinking about one positive thing that happened that day, I think that really helps because it just takes a load off of your stress a little bit. So I think just staying positive and like trying to be the happiest person you can be like every day is just, that's my advice.
My advice is to not always view stress as bad because, like we said, it helps you grow. And then, like, also, you can make it fun. Like, sometimes I'm like,
Say more. I'm interested.
So, like, sometimes I'm stressed about participating in class, right? Or like sometimes I'm giving a presentation. And so I'm like, okay, how can I make this more fun? So I don't know if you know about Drake and Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, yes. They have some beef.
Yes.
Yes.
So we were doing like a social studies presentation. And I was like, I don't really care too much about social studies. So how can I make this fun? How can I make the audience engaged? And so I was like, oh, I can just talk about like rap lyrics and their effect on the court system, which is like, I wasn't even trying to, like, I'm not interested in that specifically, but I was like, what can I use? What is some current event that other people will be interested in that I also am interested in talking about? And so I was super nervous and stressed while getting up there. But, on the topic itself, I was like, wow, this is cool. This is interesting,
Yeah.
Maybe people will actually listen. And so that gave me more excitement, honestly, like going into that stress. So it's like pairing it with like, it doesn't always have to be like, like bad or like, something that you have to do.
You could also make it like a game, like I like to like give each of my tasks like a point. So if I complete it, then I get a point. So it's like I compare it week by week to see like what points I got that week. So that's also really fun.
Leveling up, right?
Yes.
Well, this has been really great. It's been wonderful getting to know you two. I know you're going to do more podcasting with me in the future. But thank you so much for coming out today to share your nuggets with everybody else.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
Of course. Awesome.